Okay, sorry. So I'll just repeat that so that if you want to go back. So a story is a series of events recorded in chronological order, and plot is a series of events deliberately arranged and to reveal their dramatic, thematic, and emotional significance. So a story, and I like to think of this more as like, or a vignette. So like maybe it's a story you tell about something that happened in your life, but there isn't really a why about it. It's just, this is an interesting thing that happened to me. Whereas a plot gives us the who, what, how, and why, the cause and effect, right? And now this might sound a little harsh or something, but I was saying random events or incidents don't inspire because readers will be looking for that cause and effect. And that's not entirely true, but it's, again, it's reminding yourself that you are this tour guide through this story you're trying to tell. And the reader wants to know, why are you taking me on this journey and where are you taking me? So if there's no why, then eventually the reader's going to go, all right, well, that was interesting, and walk away. So, and it is also, of course, sometimes hard for us memoir or nonfiction writers to think of your own story as having a plot, because very often there isn't a easily constructed arc to it. So we as writers are constructing or adding that structure to the story of our life. And that all has to do with how you present information. So what scenes you put in what order to reveal what pieces of your story will build that sense of a plot, whether or not there really was one when you were living it, which most of the time there isn't. But sometimes I'm sure we've all had moments where it's like, wow, if I could have only known 5 years ago that this would happen and that all these things I thought were blah, blah, blah added up to what I needed to know now, like that happens. It does happen, but we don't see that in the moment of living it. Usually it's like, it comes later. This is another quote from Janet Burroway. A story is about a single moment in a character. She's saying, that's interesting. Let's just put a plot here. A plot is about a single moment in a character's life that culminates in a defining choice, after which nothing will be the same again. I really love this idea of a defining moment or choice. So the beginning of your story is often going to start with a snapshot in time just before or just as life is about to change, right? Because we don't want to wait too long at the beginning of our stories to introduce that inciting incident, or the reader is again going to go, why this story? What does it have to, why now? That's why I think autobiography is less popular these days, because the reader is looking for that defining moment. So in fiction, we call this, right, the inciting incident or the point of no return. And I'm happy to use that term for memoir as well. So really building a plot is just a matter of choosing these decision points that are consequences of or stem from that first inciting incident, and then figuring out how to dramatize those in scenes, right? So you know me, we're going to launch right into a writing exercise. What is the defining moment or point of no return for your narrator in this memoir or essay you are writing? So another way to think of a point of no return is, could your narrator easily just go back before this incident and it's imagine you're opening a door. Once your narrator passes through that door and shuts it, life is going to be different. They can't just easily go back in time. What is that moment, or what is a moment like that where everything changes in some way, shape, or form? It doesn't have to be like life or death change, but it could be something as simple as, somebody leaving a partner who's, it's not simple. Leaving a partner who's abusive is definitely not simple. Pursuing a college education. It's some of the stories you guys are already telling, adopting a child or beginning a foster process. So I'll give you a few minutes to kind of play with this. And what I'd like you to do is, let me think. No, I actually just want you to write this as kind of like a quick paragraph. I don't want you to start writing any scenes. So just see if you can identify what is this moment or point of no return. And you can write as much about it as you want, but don't feel like you have to write it in scene.
So if we've already written this, I'm sure you don't want us to take what we've already written.
If you've already written this, you are welcome to start dramatizing it into a scene.
What if we've done that?
Try to do it again, because I find you don't want to do it again.
No.
If you're inspired to write something else, sure. I do, however, find that sometimes approaching the same thing we've already done from a second perspective opens up new doors, but I am totally open to whatever you are inspired to write in this prompt.
Okay.
Okay. And there is going to be some crossover for those of you who took at least one of my sessions with some material, but that's okay. Got about 30 seconds left. All right. Okay. Some of you still writing. Who would like to share first? How about Kay? Do you mind, since you have your camera back on, it must be a good time.
Yeah, hold on a second. I didn't really get to write what would be the beginning of like the memoir, the larger piece that I want to work on. I kind of wrote something a little yesterday just for an essay piece, so
Sure.
I'm gonna start with that.
That's fine.
Okay, here we go. Have you ever played this party game where you tell two truths and one lie about yourself? Players have to figure out which is the lie. Whenever it's my turn, I struggle to come up with the lie, but the truth comes easily. The key to winning is to make the lie sound true and the truth sound like a lie. Therefore, the truth has to be fantastical, something no one believes you could have done. This is an easy one for me. I have a standard truth. I acted in a Bollywood film. Seems like a lie, doesn't it? How would I, a South Asian woman having grown up in the US, ended up in a Bollywood film? Don't they make those in Bollywood, India, or somewhere?
I love it. I was totally hooked. Good job. Good job.
It's interesting.
I played that game with Kay too. I remember the first time I totally did not choose that.
Oh, you actually played the game with Kay? That's funny.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
that was so
Oh,
much.
that's great. You're going to be on my team or whatever when we play that game. Actually, I've come to realize that people always have way more interesting pasts than you think. So I think everything's true. Okay, who would like to go next? Jesse?
The point of no return in my book is when I was injured. The injury changed my life dramatically, and I was never the same again. It left me with physical limitations and constant pain. The pain led to a deep, desperate search to heal. The experience put me on a trajectory to discover cannabis, become educated, and eventually share my experience.
Nice. Good job, rather. Not nice, but need to come up with a better word. All right. Natani?
I fostered before I knew that it would leave scars that would never heal or fade, trauma that would leave angry, mean, red-hot emotional keloids marring my heart forever, leave its etching patterns forming chaotic art.
Beautiful writing about a painful subject. Debbie?
So I couldn't do I just couldn't
That's
follow
okay.
your instructions. So I just picked a subject at
I like
random
a
and
rebel.
just came up. And a warning, there may be some triggers in this for
Okay.
people. So my last conversation with Lewis was a Sunday night. He called me before I could call him. I wanted to tell him my good news that I was pregnant. I had already had a series of miscarriages and a pregnancy that resulted in the death of both of my twins. That resulted in both of my twins dying soon after they were born. We had begun adoption procedures, but that was stopped with the news that I was pregnant. Louis, my oldest brother, was living in Santa Fe, and though we were never very close, with 10 years between us, I was eager to share good news for a change. The conversation was the best we had in a very long time. He was warm and seemed genuinely interested in me. If only I had known that would be our last conversation.
Oh, again, beautiful writing about a very painful subject, but thank you for sharing. I can see why that needed to maybe come out as well. Yeah, thank you. Suman?
This is the part that I'm writing right now. So the point of no return was the moment of realization that there was no magical sudden change when one went from being a child to an adult after having waited for that moment all her life. Wait. Oh, yeah. Wait. Oh, wait. She realizes that she had already been growing gradually, sometimes in fits, leaps, and starts, and that the growing up process was out of experiencing life, learning from it, and living it to the best of her ability, navigating and trying to get over all her fears, phobias, and natural anxieties. That came in a sudden flash when she noticed that her mom truly had no answers, as did other adults, to some of life's big questions, and even the very humdrum ones. Sorry, you can barely read my handwriting. Over that year, when she started going past adolescence, it made her decidedly less enthusiastic about life and living. She realized she needed to have a plan, a goal, something to aspire towards, and that was no easy task in the midst of the rat race that the world supposedly was. She felt 100 years old and very young and naive at the same time.
Oh, I love that final line. Thank you. All right, Shefali?
Okay, so here is mine. And I've kind of written this before, but it jumped in my mind probably because of this festival or these days. I said, wandering around in my parents' house, crying a bit sad, lost, wondering what my next steps would be. I felt very conflicted, not liking how I was living my life, not sure how to move forward. I was cleaning out my parents' room or closet or something, and I was inspired to go look at the top shelf and pull down a box of my grandmother's religious spiritual items, ones she had used for her daily pujas, these spiritual rituals, and other rituals in general. And then I wrote me, confused, the former part, me confused, rebellious person at odds with my cultural identity, double downing on rejecting certain things out of stubborn willfulness. Then there's a threshold. I wrote vacillating, realizing I was maybe wrong, not wanting to look at that, but needing to, and later moving towards healing, better choices, expecting more from myself.
Nice. Lots there.
Very nice.
I love it. Good jobs. Good jobs, everyone. Good job. This is the time of day where my words start to get jumbled. I'm just starting to recognize this now. Okay. So, well, what I'm doing today is trying to set up the beginning steps into building a narrative arc, and we'll continue this over the next couple of weeks. I'm sort of trying to offer you different ways to conceive of what it means to build a narrative arc. Underlying any good story, fictitious or true, is a deeper pattern of change, a pattern of connection and disconnection. The conflict and the surface events are like waves, but underneath is an emotional tide, the ebb and flow of human connection. I really love that, and I really agree that connection and disconnection are really what make a memoir interesting, because we don't always have big plot events. So what we have are these coming together, pulling apart, fractures, epiphanies, and things like that. So I would say that your story or your memoir's plot points are made up of these moments of connection and disconnection. So these can be between your narrator and other people in their life. These can be between old and new ways of thinking, new awarenesses, reactions to systems or forces that are sort of working against them or which they are working against, or just working within. So rather than looking for, say, events, big events, look for these moments of fracture and reconnection. So I would like you all to, now I won't make us read these out loud, but I would like you to take a few minutes to list, see if you can think of your story, just kind of think of it globally, that spine, and think, is there one at the beginning, one in the middle, and one at the end that you can think of? And you can do either just the disconnection, just connection, or both, whatever happens for you. And think of that as, so connection could be a moment of, like that call with your brother that you just read, Debbie, that's a moment of connection before a fracture, which would be his death or his passing. And of course, losing children is very much a moment of disconnection. So think of it like that, loss, connection. It could be revealing a truth to one another, having a reunion, etc. or just coming to an awareness that feels good.
So I'm sorry, you want us to write,
I want you to pinpoint, so write down, imagine you're writing these moments. I want you to pick like 3 pivotal moments of disconnection or connection that I would like you to pick one at the beginning of your story, one in the middle, one at the end. But if they don't come in that kind of easy order, just pick 3 big moments of fracture or connection that you think you're gonna, they're gonna be part of the larger story that you're trying to tell. Does that make sense? Yay, nay? Not really. See what happens, see what comes out. Just a couple seconds left. Okay, so wrap your thoughts up. So one of the things that I hadn't really read off the slide to you, but as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, that's a much better way to say it. Was this point here about, looking for these moments where things came apart, fractured, grew challenging, and then show how they came back together, mended, or got solved. I know that not everything is that tidy, so it's not everyone's story is going to fit that mold, but that's one way to look at kind of a structural approach, is to be like, here were the problems, here were the solutions, or here were the challenges, here's how I dealt with it. Since again, not everything's going to be, here's how I perfectly fixed it all. I lied. I said I wasn't going to have you share, but would everyone be willing just to share one point of disconnection or connection real quick? That shouldn't take too long. Start with you, Shefali.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know if I did this correctly. Then I kind of just went up. Okay, I'll just read what I wrote. I wrote, when I was younger and participating in cultural, spiritual events, this is the connection part, that I took for granted but did not fully understand. I was held in a protected bubble but did not necessarily always enjoy it. I was bored with it, took it for granted. And then I wrote the disconnection was, I said, leaving home, college years, rebelled, forced to rebel by a series of karmic events, compounded by poor choices, led to feeling disconnected from spiritual and cultural roots. I think that's kind of my theme right now. And then I said additional complications. I liked many aspects of my life. They're fun, growth experiences, but that still kept me away from feeling grounded or something like that.
Good. So yeah, I mean, you have a literal disconnection from roots and culture that you're writing about, or yeah, connection and disconnection. So
Yes.
Good. Jessie.
Hi, let's see. My very first visit to a dispensary and my first cannabis consult was with a consultant named Nico, who taught me about the cultivars at the dispensary and gave me a great deal of reassurance as I got ready to try my medication. And that was a moment of connection.
Like that. I'm so excited to read your story because it'll be fun to follow the part where you go from being like doubtful to seeing, I'm very excited about that. So
thank you.
All right. Hey.
Oh, did you call on me, Joy?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So this is the story you guys read. Basically, it's related to that. Leaving India in childhood occurs right after losing my father, and therefore coming to the US is riddled with feelings of loss. Begin to feel connected in school to teachers and friends until some kind of disconnection happens again.
And that's bringing that up is important, because that's what it is. You have these moments of connection, disconnection, connection, disconnection. And so kind of looking for those pieces along the way can help you to build that structure of your story, especially when you get into thinking about them sort of thematically, like what is my story about? What are the moments of connection and disconnection around that specific theme? Natani.
I don't know if I did this right.
There's no right or wrong.
Losing Ambriel after being her mother for 7 months, being called mommy for the first time, having her fall asleep, soft, heavy on my chest, learning to navigate life with this curious monkey at my knee, on my hip, was a point when I became disconnected with myself. I found myself again after Yana was placed with us, and we had to fight so hard to keep her. It woke me up, woke my inner mama bear, reconnected me to the woman I thought I was supposed to be, but doubted after that horrific loss. I realized I was fighting for my child, not someone else's, and in turn fighting for myself because I remembered who the fuck I was.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, you've got again, disconnection, connection, disconnection. That's really powerful. Thank you. Suman.
So madam, mainly like point form.
That's
so,
fine.
So I'm just sharing one, right? So disconnection from growing up, it was always the disconnection of of always leaving every 2 years, moving, the instability from that, always the loneliness from always being a new girl, making friends too late because of shyness and knowing that the friend was not going to last, connection. It made me get closer to my sister when I was growing up. We had moments of joy from creativity. We read copiously, wrote plays, and made dances. We sang together. And then again, that would lead to a part where I start growing, and now she's too young for me, and then I grew apart from her.
Nice.
So
Yeah, even just the moving every 2 years, each one of those is like a fracture and a disconnection
yeah,
over and over and over again.
yeah, it's like a tiny bit of a what's a plaster, a band-aid cut,
Yeah.
and
then
it's like ripped off, and then you put a new one. It's still hurting and it's ripped off.
yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, that's there's a lot of good material to mine in that. You know, here I am talking about your pain so cavalierly.
Yeah, good.
Think of the art. Think of the art.
I know.
But we have to at some points, right?
Of course.
Good. Thanks, Simone. All right, Debbie.
So since you referred to mine and did my work for me, I went back to my memoir and used the connections and disconnection from that. Connection, when I saw myself in the glorious film and realized the time had come to write my memoir. Disconnection, when I realized that my Jewish life wasn't as glorious as I thought it was, and that I was excluded from important rituals because I was a woman. Disconnection, when I decided not to go to college, but to follow the expectations of my parents and most of society, to take a different path, beginning with being a secretary. Connection, learning that it was not too late for me to become a rabbi, and that there was a rabbinical school that would accept me even late in life.
Lovely. Thank you. Did I get everybody? Did I skip anyone? Okay, good. Good work, everybody. All right, let's see what I got next. So then from a kind of more overarching perspective, you can think of your story arc as being built upon these three essential things: conflict, crisis, and resolution. So yeah, I'm sorry that this basically just turned into a writing workshop today. I thought I had more like instructive slides, but apparently I don't. And because this is the last one. So you want to think of your story as starting with that inciting incident or defining moment, and then ask, what is at stake? What does your narrator stand to lose? What ultimate crisis will this choice lead to? And for some of you, that can be a crisis of belief or choice, or it could be a more concrete crisis of some kind. And crisis is just a way of saying a big challenge you have to grapple with. And how will it resolve? So these big three questions kind of shape the entire arc of your story. So, what is at stake? What is the crisis this leads to? And how can it be resolved? And then again, resolution might be gray area, or it might be a true resolution. So like I said, sorry, it's a writing workshop today. Last task of the day is to ask yourself these three questions. What is the conflict, or what is at stake? What crisis does this lead to? And you might not know the answer to that yet, so fake it. And you can just answer these as questions. You don't have to write a scene, but you can do that as well. And how will it resolve? Meaning, how will it end? How will you finish up this story? And again, this comes back to what is the takeaway that you want the reader to have? So it doesn't matter how it actually resolved, but how do you want to resolve this story? Where do you want to end it for the sake of what you want the reader to take away from it? So you could end your story, in the middle of something, if that's what you want to show us. Does that make sense? So conflict, larger crisis, and how does it resolve? And next week I'll have more talking slides. 30 seconds. Okay. Wrap it up. So I'm just gonna have you guys read what you wrote, unless it's convoluted, then you could pick whichever part you want to share, if that makes sense. What was that? child. Today is asynchronous Wednesday, so my son's been going back to school in person for 2 weeks.
How's he liking it?
How are you liking school? I got a thumbs up. He likes it.
That's great.
He's just happy to be back. And my kid's a social kid.
Yeah.
You know, and even with all the adaptations and the masks and the distancing, it's still better than sitting in your room.
Any day, my
Like
goodness.
this.
Aw.
Actually ask questions of your teacher when you are struggling, which you can't, it's so hard to do over Zoom. It's like the
Right.
teacher isn't looking at us, and if I raise my hand, he doesn't even call on me. And I'm like,
Aw.
I know.
The
I know,
raise hand
baby.
feature's not working then.
Oh no, the teachers are working their butts off. It's awful. It's just
No,
awful.
no, the raise hand feature wasn't working.
Oh, the feature was probably not
Yeah.
working. Yeah. Anyways, okay. So, all right. I think I keep making you go last, Suman. So I'll let you go first this time.
I don't mind. And so I did this just for the one chapter that I'm writing. So conflict, fear, expectations, and holding the conflict is within her mind. She's close to new experiences and new people, letting them in after being burnt in the past. And there's going to be hell to pay because now she wants to go against her parents' wishes, something she's never done before. So what crisis does this choice lead to? Knowing that she cannot do what she's expected to do, she starts acting out. And then so all I wrote was show the moments of when my mom used to say that what personified me was that nursery rhyme. When she was good, she was very, very good. But when she was bad, she was horrid. And I usually was horrid when the volcano inside me was too much and I just couldn't do anything else but just let it out. So the erupting volcano and the being Mrs. Gummidge of David Copperfield. There's this character in David Copperfield called Mrs. Gummidge who feels everything more than everyone's feeling. Like everyone's going through the same thing, but she feels too much. It affects her too much or whatever. So I was known to be that person. So anyway, I turn into that person. Those are the choices I'm making. How will it resolve? Well, having to face things because there is no other way, there is too much control in her life. Expecting things to go wrong, she realizes suddenly that not everything is always bad and that happiness is but an occasional episode in the general drama of pain that Thomas Hardy said. Is while it might be true, even experiencing that happiness also requires allowing oneself to let go and be more zen and meditative. Something like that. It's just about that one chapter.
No, I think you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Suman. All right, Debbie.
I went back to my original, what I'd written the beginning of class. So the conflict is Lewis's suicide and my reactions to it, mostly anger at the pain he caused his young daughters and aging parents, my parents. The crisis leads to looking at Lewis's seemingly perfect life and realizing that he had his own demons that I could never really understand. It led to a cessation of judgment and forgiveness. It isn't the whole book, but one of several moments that defined the woman I became.
Beautifully done. I'm gonna be sending out the link to the talk Gail gave because her book is about her mother's suicide, and I think that you will find her talk really meaningful. Yeah. So and her book as well might be useful to you to read. But thank you for sharing, Natani.
The accusation of starving a child I had fed so diligently, putting more thought and care into how I was fueling her tiny, rough start body than my own. What would fuel her heart, cleanse her spirit, feed her underdeveloped muscles? Having to explain and re-explain verbally and via written word that we were trying to pack her full of nutrients only to have it suggested that we might feed her fast food simply for the empty calories. The crisis of ignorant intervention. Having the gratifying moment where my fed up mother stood over the head of pediatrics, watching her fill out a growth chart that had been left empty, watching the doctor's face as she realized her and their errors, that she was indeed growing, indeed thriving, increasing, and climbing from 5th to 20th percentile, all under my care. I made her apologize twice, once verbally, once in writing.
Nice. Nice. Very well done. And as you're talking, it occurs to me that you can do this whole conflict crisis resolution for every scene if you want to help structure where you're going. So there's the overarching one, and then there's each individual one as you go.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because especially with Fost Adopt, like they're all coming to you in crisis, and then there's always conflict because there's 50 chefs in the kitchen. And
yep. Yes, yeah. It could help you just structure every scene or chapter that you're writing if you think of it in that framework. If it works for you, might not.
Yeah. Cool.
Good work.
Thanks.
All right, Kay. Sorry, I'm still here. I'm just reaching for something over here. Okay, here I am.
I was kind of distracted. I wasn't really able to write on this today, so I'm going to pass.
That's fine. Thank you. All right, Jessie.
Okay, I wrote what is at stake: health, wellness, happiness, joy, love, life, and ever living without pain. Crisis is evidence versus authority, and knowledge versus the stigma. And the resolution is cannabis helps. It's not a magical cure, but it really, really helps.
Nice. I like that. I appreciate that ending, kind of, that it's like, I'm not trying to say it's for everyone has to use it for everything. I'm just saying it's a tool in your arsenal. Yes. Good. All right, Shefali.
I'm up. So I kind of continued what I was writing before. I wrote, finding a way to find my own sense of connection with my roots while navigating new experiences, balancing a sense of traditionalism that allows for progressive thinking. I wrote, I'm still navigating this on my own terms. I love some aspects of orthodoxy because of what you can learn from it by staying close to source. I enjoy traditional rituals and customs, not just my own, but of other cultures too, but I'm progressive as well. I don't like the insular bigotry that some of these systems consciously or unconsciously perpetrate, the narrow ideas and limits, the exclusive club attitudes. So I sometimes feel like I have to go it alone. It's sort of a theme, appreciating the traditional, but needing to tweak it in my own life to make it work for me.
I like that very much. Awesome. Well, on that note, let's take like a 3-minute break, and then we will move on over. I didn't miss anyone, did I? So that's just the beginning of starting to talk about narrative arc. We will keep going with that and get deeper into it as we go. And we'll be talking about front story versus backstory, and we'll be doing some memory dump and stuff like that. But so take a little break. We'll convene back here at like 4:05-ish, and then we will talk about Shefali's piece. All right, good work.
I'm so sorry.
I'm back. Actually, one more thing. Allergies are hitting. I get allergy shots, so I'm in pretty good shape, but they still break through this time of year, even with years of allergy shots. Okay. Which is funny because Gail does this writing exercise around allergy shots. It's really thematic. Also, I wanted to let everyone know next week we have, so some of you know Kara Bolton. You've been in class with her, and she's a writer. She is leading a workshop next week in my 1 o'clock class that you're also welcome to, called Writing the Ancestors. It's a really cool workshop she gives, and it's about helping you to connect your ancestry into the personal essay form or the memoir. It's just a really great, fun workshop. She's a wonderful writer and teacher. So once again, that'll be open to anyone who's taken my memoir classes. And I'll send out a reminder, but I'd love it if you would come, because it's great and she's great. And I'd love to have a full class for her. So that'll be at 1 o'clock on the 28th. Is that right? Am I on the right date? Gosh, did April just like go by in a blink? I keep thinking it's the 15th. I'm like completely a week off.
It's all these classes. It makes
I think
everything
you're right.
like taking 2 of yours last session. It was like a little faster than normal, my life.
right.
But this time with 3, it's like this last couple of weeks just went like.
Well, I'm starting a new schedule like once we kind of conclude all the classes that are in session, and I'm going to be staggering things a little more so they're not all happening. Some of them will cross over, but they won't be quite as concurrent. I have a person who's working with me to develop my website, and that's one of the things she's helping me with, is like the class structure. So that will help us all.
I know, I feel very disoriented too. I taught 2 classes and I'm taking 2 classes
I know.
and I have to
a
do
lot.
something in the evening. It's just crazy. Yeah.
There was a time where I was also taking a class and teaching classes, and it's a lot, but it's also like a part of my soul thrives under the intensity of it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But.
Well, the 2 classes were art, so it's kind of it's about creativity and art and learning how to analyze, and it was beautiful. It was very fabulous. The kids were so amazing. So it helped.
Hang on, I have to quickly do one thing with my cat. Sorry. Nope.
Pickles.
While she's doing that, Shefali, your curtains behind you are open in a funny way. When you move your head, there's a blinding light.
Oh no, maybe I'll go shut them. Maybe I can go shut them. Let me try to do that.
Don't move your head, one or the other.
I'll stay still.
That happens to mine too when I go to the dining room.
Yeah, it looks like it looks like there's like a laser beam coming from the top of your head.
Yeah, there it is. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Okay.
It's a halo.
Pay attention.
All right. So, Polly. Sorry, I left my screen here. Okay, here we are. So, who would like to start talking about Shefali's piece, The Heat, what you loved, what you resonated with? And then we can move on to what. Anyone?
I will start.
Thanks, Jessie.
Let me find it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said Jessie.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry because they sound
the same.
The same syllables. But you can go after Jessie. Get the Jessie and the Debbie in order.
Okay. So I love first off, I'm in love with your dog. I want one too. But I love the dialogue in the beginning. The scene that the narrator gives me right there in the beginning, it makes me really excited about the puppy and really gives me a lot of insight into who the narrator is and her relationship with her family, or her daughter specifically. And I love this explanation that the narrator gives and how they lay it out, explaining the dog and giving all of these explanations. I have a doodle. I didn't know any of these things. And it was really, really interesting to learn, what a sable is, what furnishings are. My dog has those, never knew. I really, really enjoyed that. Let's see. Oh, I could totally relate with these lines, specifically the open-mindedness of my children's generation surprises, inspires, and sometimes perplexes me. They seem so ahead of my time. Completely agree. My kids surprise me all the time, and I would love to see maybe like examples of that. How when you experience that with, or when the narrator experiences that with her family. Um, let's see. Oh, I could totally also relate this this portion that talks about COVID instigated isolations, and and all those acquaintances that could be lost, that have been lost because of the pandemic. Like we don't even think of that, and that really, really gave me. Had me pause and think about, how many people, just casual common acquaintances we've lost in COVID. I also love this portion. I never thought of this. FaceTime means something entirely different to me. There's been a complete flip-flop, upside down reversal. And that you hear all the time about like Zoom fatigue and everything, but you never think of that. Like a lot of people weren't comfortable with video chatting at all whatsoever before the pandemic, and now everybody's an expert. And I think that this would be also an awesome opportunity to like really give a scene, and explain, like, maybe focus on one of those crazy, interesting Zoom classes that the narrator experienced, or, to really illustrate, instead of just telling us about it. I loved, there is a hidden blessing in our COVID situation, the active reacquaintance with the natural world. Totally agree with this too. And where did I put that? Again, this would be a great spot for a scene. Maybe, the narrator and her family on one of their hikes just before, instead of just diving into how, we love hiking, maybe just giving us a scene and a little experience, maybe, in the hike, reflecting back on these thoughts. But it would be a great place to give us some action and some imagery right in there with some of the narrator's experiences. And I love when the narrator talks about the festival. It sounds so beautiful. I'm craving more of a description. I would love for the narrator to transport me to a past festival, to give me a glimpse of, the beauty and the cultural significance and the importance to the narrator. I was craving that. But I love this description of the scene, of the festival itself. Okay, and that takes us to the end. And at the end, I'm so glad the narrator brought me back to the puppy, because I was waiting for the entire time to hear about that puppy. And I just thought it would be kind of neat if the narrator found a way to maybe reference the puppy, or reference dogs or pets or something in general, throughout, to kind of just weave it in and tie it all in. But I really, really enjoyed reading this piece, Shefali, and I really am in love with your puppy, even though I've never seen her.
Thanks, Jessie.
Thanks.
All right, Debbie. For real this time.
Yeah. So Jessie took a lot of my words, so thank you, Jessie. I'll be a little briefer. Shefali, I felt like I was chatting with you on the phone, or maybe on FaceTime, which is both a positive thing and maybe something not quite as positive, because no, it was positive. I heard your voice. The narrator was very clear in who she is, and I have the tremendous energy. I just felt that throughout. What was missing for me, and Jessie talked about it, and when she was specific in scenes where in paragraphs where the scenes could be expanded, I felt like I didn't know where you were going. I didn't get what was tying all of this together. And I kept trying to figure out, so what is the point of telling that? Oh, this is the point. No, that's not the point, because we're moving to a different point. So there was something missing for me in the cohesion of the total piece. I'm not into animals at all. I'm vegan. I don't eat them, but I don't really want to read about them either. And I will say that I kept reading nonetheless because your story was very provocative in a good way. I wanted to hear how that was going. So you get more credit than you know for that.
That's funny. Thanks, Debbie. Awesome. All right. Who would like to go next? Natani.
So the heat for me was the roller coaster of this story, because I wasn't sure, like Debbie said, where it was going, but I like where it ended up. And I like that it kind of like a roller coaster, you wound up back where you started and it tied it all together. And I was like, well, that was a fun trip. So I really dug that. I liked the conversational aspect of the narrative. I found it comforting and friendly and accessible and um, uh, relatable. It felt like somebody I knew was telling me something about themselves, and I really liked that. Um, so I liked how you pointed out that women are good at finding ways to connect with each other, especially in trying times. And I don't know if you meant to point that out, but that's what I got from it. There's just something about the feminine connection, and that was really nice to read. Let's see. Oh, the going outside thing was really big for me. The juxtaposition of Zoom for kids, but families spending more time outside, like made me so happy, because like one of my homeschool sayings is always like monkeys need trees. Like
Mhm.
the kids need to be outside. You know, I always think of kids as monkeys, and like monkeys need trees. So I loved that. And it's really been nice seeing people using our county and state parks. And like we homeschool veterans are always like, oh, they're not used to being outside, isn't that cute? But it's like, it's so nice to see, and like the joy on their faces and seeing this calm come over kids that are usually like, oh, you know, like, so it's nice to hear it from a perspective of somebody who's maybe newer to spending time outside. And I love the cultural references, all the cultural references. I had to Google all the words and terms that you use because I wanted to know more about them. And not that I feel like you didn't describe them enough. I need a whole novel when I learn something new. So like, don't feel like you have to write a novel about everything. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. And I want to read more of your stuff because I think you have a lot to say. And I like the way your head works. So that was thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Natani. Who would like to go next?
I wouldn't mind going.
Okay, Simone.
Should I go? Okay, perfect. So let's start with, I love that it was so topical and I loved it overall. It felt like a Zen meditation, like you allowed your mind to navigate, and what a wonderful ride it was. I loved your lovely and intimate conversational style. I loved the fact that it showed you to be cheeky and fun-loving, but with a lot of depth. Overall, I do agree with everyone saying that you could inject a lot of scenes. So we go move on from there. I also love, like, right from the first scene, when you talk about your daughter and her wild gesticulations, and then when you're responding somewhat like primly and feeling a little smug and school momish. I just love how that shows your personality. I could almost like picture you doing that and saying that with your lovely resonant voice. I love that. It was great. And also when I was reading it, I love the styles and turns of phrases. I don't know, I felt very at home with them. Like, when he said, we had waffled quite a bit before acceding to our kids' entreaties. I was like, oh, that could be me writing. I loved it. So, and it made me think that I think your audience could be the considerable English-speaking population in India who will lap all this up. And I thought, just for a writing, just to experiment, maybe you could like flip it over and do just the opposite of where, instead of explaining about the Indian bits, if you rewrite and explain all the typically American bits, you know, I think you have something going there. So maybe you could do both, like one for the American audience where you write more about the Indian stuff, and one for the Indian audience where you write more about the American things, because, you know, having come from India 22 years ago, spent 32 years in India, I know what the differences are and how much they don't know about how it is out here. So I thought that, oh, this is going to be amazing for people back in India. Yeah, and again, I wrote conversational, friendly, and cute style. I love the idea of your daughter bonding with a female from another species, and the fact, and I thought, oh my God, she's 10 and you have a little puppy and they're going to mature together. In my family, we got a puppy when I was 11, and literally we matured together. And my little puppy, she died the day I found out I was having a baby. So it was almost as if she knew that there's a baby coming into the family, and now she's gone. So I was like, oh, I like the fact that your daughter's going to have that. And then the part about the women and bonding, oh, that felt so amazing. And then maybe this is just my experience, but because I moved so often, I felt like in India, whatever friendship I had was not women opening to each other and revealing their inner lives and struggles at all. We would do fun things and read things together and talk about things external. No one would ever share their own lives, which to me was so fantastic when I came to the US, and everyone talks about themselves. I love it so much. And then when I talk about myself, I always feel like, I don't know, it's like I'm giving of myself. So whenever anyone tells me about their lives, I just feel so honored to be privy to their lives. It's just very rare in India, or at least that was my experience. And then the part where you said about, you know, how our kids are so much, like, so far ahead and open-minded and so woke and all of that, all very true. And I know that's true of both my daughter and my son. I learn from them every day. And the amount of times my daughters try to explain the difference between sex and gender, and oh, I forgot what the third thing is like, you know, and she doesn't even roll her eyes. But anyway, in general, I just want to say that I think you have something going, and I really loved it. And I also love the fact that you live in the US and yet you're very connected to your culture, which I never was. And I remember coming to the US and thinking, should I be more connected to India? But I thought that would be not, I don't know, I just didn't feel authentic for me, because when I wasn't like that in India, if I tried to be that here, is that the true me? Is that not me? So I feel like I want to read more about you to help me understand me. So I loved it. So thank you. I think I heard the bell go ding.
Yes, my cat thinks he heard the bell go ding too. That's a very unflattering angle. Don't do that. Nobody wants to see that. my rotten cat. Okay. Kay, have you had a chance to go yet?
No. Yeah, I think there's so many interesting things going on here. And I think there's like 3 or 4 thematics. So there's the dog, there's the online during COVID, there's female friendships, and then there's Navratri and culture. And I have to say, I love and there may be others, but those are the major ones I noticed. I love the friendly, funny, kind of, you know, tone of the narrator. And I think Suman said, but there's so much depth there too. So that's like really wonderful when someone can pull that off, like to be so approachable, but so smart and, you know, easy to read too, right? So, so I thought that was great. Like your tone is definitely down. What spoke to me really was more the end where you're exploring culture. And then when you said you're like a clinical psychologist, I was like really fascinated. So I looked you up and I saw you have a dissertation on the topic of Garba. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so fascinating.
Very cool.
Like, she actually wrote a dissertation about like this very specific tradition in her culture, right? And she explored it in this academic way, but it must be so incredibly powerful and personal, right? And I was fascinated by that because I also wrote my dissertation about Indian culture. So, and it was in literature. So I wrote about films and stuff, but I wrote about goddesses and their, how to balance kind of East and West and how to be a progressive woman and still believe in tradition and culture. And I thought that that's what I saw you doing too, especially in the way you were talking about it in class today. So what I would really like to see is for you to put some of what you wrote in class today in here. And, the meat of it, the real, well, I don't want to use the word meat because I'm a vegan, but but the heart of it for me really is the exploration of the connect and disconnect between culture and how you kind of come into it, you own it at some point, right? Like you literally own it. You start writing your dissertation about it. So that's the heart of it. That's what I really want to know more about. And I think, we should talk about this because I think we have a very similar trajectory in terms of disconnect, connect between culture and stuff.
That's nice. I love that.
I love I'm an outsider even among Indians.
No, I was going to say that.
I always have been.
I think it's so interesting that we have three different experiences in this class of Indian
It also
culture.
doesn't help to be half and half too. I'm half and half. So I'm always the other. Yeah.
Well, I think Jordan's right. Everybody's experience is valid and unique. It's just, I think Polly and I both grew up in the US, so we have a similar, you came much later, I think. So
yeah, but even in India, I'd never fit in, right? So I never fit in there because I'm only half Indian. So in India, I was only half Indian. So I came to America where you can be whoever you want to be. And then suddenly they say culture, tradition, whatever. And I was like, what? But anyway, it's not about me. It's about Shefali's lovely writing.
It's all good stuff. It's all good stuff.
Yeah, I think this is really fascinating. My cat's facing my desk. Can you please go away?
So cute.
Oh yeah, he's adorable. He's cute when he's not your cat.
That's
cute when he's sleeping. That's when he's cute. Just like children.
Yeah.
Right. Good. So did everyone get a chance to go? Yes. I also just so admire your mind, Shefali. I came away from this like, what an interesting mind you have. And I just really admired the many little thought pathways that it took, and so many things people have said. I loved that it feels like one of the things I've heard said about essay, whether this is an essay or part of a memoir, is that you kind of have a little bit of room to meander in an essay. Like an essay can take you along different paths. Eventually it has to kind of come back to where it started from or make some kind of sense, but it has a little bit of room for digression, for, whereas like a memoir has a little bit more, necessity of kind of going chronologically. So I really felt like you were being true to the essay form here and taking your little thought meanders. And there's so many great moments, images. The dog is wonderful. I really started connecting around the female connection, the positives of COVID, all of that stuff about nature, and the way it's kind of forced us to learn how to be people in a whole different way. Like I really related to a couple of things you said about that. Like, yeah, it's, if you were uncomfortable online, now you're comfortable, but now it's like almost becoming harder to learn how to be in person again. That's awkward now. And as an extrovert, or mostly one, like I've really struggled with that. Like I get tired from being with people, which I didn't used to. And so I really appreciate all those explorations. And I feel like this kind of writing is the sort of thing that is the bounty that's coming out of this terrible year, plus. So, and I think a lot of what others have said is just what you're getting the same feedback from everyone is a good thing, because it means, right, that we all kind of had the same experience. Your narrator is kind of in their head. Your narrator is cerebral in this place, which is fascinating because she's interesting and she's smart and she's exploring interesting things. But eventually we kind of have this yearning to like bring me down, ground me in scene and setting and dialogue and action. And when you do that, it's very alive. So I liked Jesse's idea that like maybe this starts out on a hike and then your narrator is actually reflecting back. So you actually start in scene and then go into thought processes. That's as a thought or something to do with the dog. While I really loved the details about the dog, for me, I actually felt like that was its own essay. In fact, I actually feel like you might have 4 or 5 essays in this one. I was like, this is like, I was saying this to the person in our last class. I want you to pull things out and slow things down, like stretch them out like taffy and like your mind is so interesting and so full. Like there's so many thoughts. That sounds like bad, but I mean, like I truly admire the way your mind moves from like this idea to the other. And there is a kind of flow, and if I slow it down, I can follow it. It's just more from that like global perspective where eventually at one point you're like, wow, I totally went down this rabbit hole and I don't know how I got here, but it's still interesting. So that's kind of how your writing is, right? It's like you take us somewhere interesting and then we kind of go, wait, where did I start originally? So I would just say for you, it might be a matter of just really kind of maybe picking one of those pieces about the female connection or about reconnecting with nature and seeing if you could almost extrapolate it out. Like now that you know the theme, could you pull it out and see if it becomes its own essay? I wouldn't be surprised if you could come up with like 3 or 4 in distinct essays on their own, or you might find, okay, this piece does actually fit with this piece, but I would really kind of try to urge you to pull it apart, slow it down. But I really love what you have to say. I'm very interested in this larger discussion that we're talking about feeling both connected to culture, but wanting to pull away from the parts that feel limiting, which is another, a whole other essay too. You just have a lot going on in there, which I really admire. I was like, this could be her essay collection, but it's all right now. It's like the sweetened condensed version.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think that you have an excellent amount of material to work with. And I think really just kind of pulling it apart and slowing it down will help you focus, but good work. So what about you? Would you like to respond?
Well, first I'd like to just say I'm having all my throat lozenges now too. I don't know, allergies probably too, but thank you to everybody. I appreciate all of your comments. I will say that, I wasn't sure what I was doing. And I will admit that I kind of felt like as the week was going on, I was like, this is homework. I was starting to feel resistant. And I was like, oh no, I have to do something. And I was pretty nervous, but so I think there was a little stream of consciousness things going on. I just threw things and I said, I hope I'm not missing the mark. I'm just gonna blurt these things out verbally because I wasn't really sure. I'm not writing a memoir, so I wasn't sure where this was going. So I appreciate all the feedback. I think I definitely will add the scenes. I can definitely see where I can do that and maybe even make them separate essays. That might also be useful too. I appreciate hearing how people were relating to certain parts of it, especially with the Indian connection. I think that's fascinating. I would love to explore more of that with both of you as well. And then also, I didn't even know Kay wrote that. I'm just like, wow, what a synchronistic. I'm so curious. I'm like, what is this? I want to learn more about this. So I wrote copious notes while you were all talking about scenes, right? And put what more scenes. I'm like, I think I need to add some scenes here. So that's what I'm going to have to do. And another question I guess I have just for all of you or for anyone, I wasn't really sure what to do with this because again, since it wasn't a memoir, I was sort of like, where does this kind of writing even go? Like who would want to read? I didn't know really how to shape it because I think I wasn't fully sure of my audience. So that was really interesting too, Suman, when you were telling me. I didn't know who to write this for. I was kind of like, these are my thoughts and I'm blurting them out and who would even want to read this? It's kind of like, I kind of was just talking to somebody because I didn't know what to do with it.
Big audience in India.
Yeah, well, you wrote a personal essay, in my opinion, and there's many audiences for personal essay. There's lots of places that publish personal essays. So I think now that you have a rough draft, you can decide, do I want to write this about female friendships? In which case and I could certainly help you pick some places if you wanted to try to submit it somewhere. Or do I want to focus on, the reconnection with nature and self and culture or whatever, like that's why I think picking a thread and making it about that. I also have a template, which is fun. It's a very, very rough or like basic template that comes out of this book I love called Naked Drunken Writing. By Adair Lara. It's a book on writing essay and memoir, and she has this little template for how to write an essay, like how to draft an essay. And it's like, it's just kind of a series of like prompts for thinking about it that I'd be glad to send to you. And it's
Okay.
in fact, normally I teach that at some point, but most of us are writing memoir, so I didn't really go, but I could also present that to you guys. It's just a slide.
Okay.
I also recommend the book. Not only is it a fantastic
Naked Drunken
title,
Writing.
Naked Drunken
Drunken
Writing,
Writing.
like the best title ever. Adair,
Yeah.
Adair Lara, she's right for the Chronicle, San Francisco Chronicle, I think. She's a columnist. But she's got a lot of really good points about how to write an essay that I find really useful. So I would recommend that because it could also help you refine the structure. And you might also, if you were to want to publish it, I would say I wouldn't go longer than 1,000 words. So that's obviously a lot less than you have. So you could really push yourself to figure out like the specific topic you want and then condense. And that's a fun exercise. At first it seems painful, but it's like, you actually surprise yourself by realizing how much can go and what you're really trying to say. So like taking that exercise and bringing it down. But yeah, I think you're writing essays for the most part. That's my experience if you're writing, and they certainly could go together and make a memoir because there are memoirs in essays. But that's the form I would say that you are writing, the personal essay.
Essay, the personal.
And actually next week when Kara gives her talk, part of what she's talking about is the personal essay forms. You might enjoy listening to her if you can make the time. If not, I'll record it so you can still see it. Yeah. And then Debbie, you had said you had a question about, you're muted still. I can't hear you because you're muted still. I know, it's like a puppet, right?
If you want to just hear the question now and answer it later, that's okay with me.
Or is it for Shefali?
What?
Is the question for me or is it for Shefali?
It's a question that arose from Shefali's writing.
That's right. Yeah,
Shefali wrote a lot about the times in which we're living. And it resonated with all of us because we're living in it. And I'm sure that in the next year or two, it'll continue to resonate. But at what point are we, do we need, it's the question, are we writing for this moment or are we writing for
future, for posterity?
And at what point do we need to expand our current experience so that someone who isn't living it will know what it is we're talking about?
I think I understand what I think your question is sort of like, there's almost like a shorthand when you're living through an experience. We all kind of know what it means to Zoom and to blah, blah, blah. But if somebody was reading this in 20 years or 15 years, would we have to explain more? I tend to think that writing from where you are is kind of all we're really capable of doing. It's so hard to conceive of how someone would, I mean, you can definitely steer away from things that are too of the moment, like jargon and terminology that is like super of the moment. At the same time, I'm thinking like, there are essays and pieces of work that hold up from many, many years ago where maybe they feel dated or they reflect a period of time. But that's because they are of that time period. And some things may be more timeless, but I don't know. I think that's a hard skill to learn, to write in a universal way beyond this moment. But I think for me that really what it comes down to is if your themes are somewhat universal or cross over beyond just yourself, right? So the things that Shefali's writing about, connection and nature and all that stuff, are going to transcend time, right? But it's grounded in this moment, and yet the themes are more universal. So if you can kind of keep your finger on the pulse of the thematic part you're trying to tell, then I think that it won't matter so much when it's grounded in what time period. But I'm sure there's some writers who are better at this than others. I don't know that I'm any good at that, but
I just wanted to say, like, when I was studying literature, we had to study a lot of essays from the 16th century onwards, like Francis Bacon, for example, is from the 16th century.
Yeah.
And we had to study them, and it was a fantastic look into the world during his time. So I feel like it's okay to write it from what you are today. Some people 4 centuries from now, we'll really enjoy it.
I love that. All right. Well, good work, everyone. I have to kind of wrap up because I have to do something else. So let's do our goals. Ugh,
Oh, yeah.
stop eating the garbage. Go. So Shefali, what is your goal for next week? Stop that.
Well, phew, I feel like I
Hold
don't
on.
know.
He's eating plastic. He's ready. He's a little brat. A toddler.
Now you know why Debbie doesn't like animals.
Debbie, right now I'm on your team, I tell you. But I feel like I could probably eat him. That's how much he annoys me.
Uh-oh.
I'm kidding. Okay, sorry, Shefali, your goal.
Well, I feel like I did a big, I'm like, oh, I did the writing, I got it done. But maybe it would be good for me to see if I can do some of these changes this week while it's still
Fresh.
kind of fresh. Otherwise, I feel like it will be kind of like it's not. But maybe do some changes. Maybe add at least maybe one scene, or maybe add a scene. Okay, I'm writing this down. Add one scene, maybe, and maybe flesh out like one storyline.
Okay, I like that. One scene, flesh out one storyline. Stop it. You are on my last nerve. Okay, Jesse.
I am still working on my comparative titles.
Ugh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Empathy there for you. Natani.
Working on my submission for your other class.
Can you even keep track anymore?
No. I've got a written schedule, a computer schedule. It's in my phone, reminders everywhere, and I don't even know what day of the week it is.
I had to buy like a specific calendar just to keep track of the classes and who's going when and when they end. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually, it's interesting that the dissertation thing came up, because I was talking to somebody about it, and then I realized there's this genre of writing that's like part academic, part literary. So you can take like concepts, academic concepts like, gender and sex, but then you write about like what other people have written about that, and then you like write about your own experience, and it's like back and forth. So it's not just academic, it's not just memoir, it's somewhere in between. Like there's a book called Minor Feelings that does that. So anyway, I want to go back through some of the things I've written and do it in that genre.
Oh, nice. So I just posted a link to a website called LitHub, which does a lot of literary essays, and they're very much like that, where they're often pegged to a book or a writer, or author, but they're also often taking on a subject. In fact, there's a few publications I really admire that do this. So I'll put their titles in here, and they're all places that any of you could submit excerpts from your memoir or essays. Catapult. I can't spell today. Okay, so those are a few if you want to check them out. Also long.
Like that.
Yeah, they published some great stuff. Okay, Suman, what is your goal for next week?
So because I'm due in 2 weeks,
Mhm.
Not that I'm expecting a baby, but I'm expected to produce the writing, which is going to be my baby. I shall go into confinement and do the writing. Sorry, I had to do that.
Is that a thing women used to do? They went into confinement when they were.
Yeah.
Lord.
Went into confinement
I
to
know.
have the baby.
Got it. So they can't be no men could be fouled by their pregnant pheromones or something.
Oh, it was just so that they could rest and have
Oh,
a
okay,
baby
that's
healthily.
In Tudor England, they didn't even let them have daylight. They would close them off like royalty.
Oh,
In Tudor court, they would shut all the curtains and close all the windows. They didn't want them exposed to air, sunlight.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they thought that was
Horrible.
bad for the baby.
Yep.
And then oh, that's horrible.
And no movement. And then of course people didn't have enough energy or muscle strength to push the baby out.
To give their baby, yeah. Oh,
Because they hadn't exercised or anything.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yep.
stop it.
Super smart.
very smart.
All right, Debbie.
Yeah, moving on from a subject far from me. I remain stuck in what was instead of writing anything new. So I keep going back and rewriting.
Mm,
So I'm going to really go forward this week and write
Right.
something fresh and new.
fresh and new. Okay. I like that.
Great.
Awesome. Well, maybe I think I already sent out Gail's recording. Give it a watch. Maybe something will inspire you in her talk. I thought her talk was very inspiring.
Thank you.
It was really excellent. It was
Right?
great.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
highly
Yeah,
recommend you guys watch
definitely.
the video.
Um,
It's really good.
And then next week, yeah, it'll be Natani. No, that's the other class. See, Kristen, who our ghost member, Kristen is, as far as I know, she still wants to be critiqued. She's been trying to leave you guys comments along the way. She's the one who has a
Yeah.
baby. So I'm going to check in with her for sure.
So-
But that week, also at 1 o'clock, if you want to check in with and see Kara talk, I highly recommend it, but I will record it. So if you're not available, you can still watch it. But
Jordan, I may not be there for the next class, but I will send
Okay.
her in writing. I have
that's fine.
this museum thing I have to do at 2 o'clock.
That's fine. And I don't know yet. I have to check in with her to see if she's gonna be able to do it or not. So
Should I be expediting my writing? But I actually won't be able to.
no,
do
you
that.
don't. You can even turn it in. You can even send her comments late. You know, that's fine. No, if she sends it. So, okay. Well, everyone have a great rest of your week and weekend till I see you next. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye, guys.
Bye, thank you. Thank